back to Robbie Ray, and welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, July 25th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, Robbie Ray had an awesome debut at the Dodgers. There was an offensive explosion in Coors Field, and do not start Gerrit Cole against the Mets ever again. But let's jump in. Oh my God. So that was a clip from Candelita.
Oh, yeah.
Jose Iglesias, because those Mets put a hurting on the Yankees. They swept the Subway Series, and these two teams could not be further apart in terms of vibes right now. It's quite bad. Mets are awesome. They are trending up, and the Yankees have gone the complete opposite way. But we'll talk about some Mets and Yankees later on. I will get us started. You guys graciously gave me the Olive Garden breadstick. We got to talk about Robbie Ray, who got off to a shaky start in his debut, but wound up having a great outing at the Dodgers. 5 no-hit innings, 1 run allowed, 2 walks, 2 hit by pitches, 8 strikeouts. He had 22 whiffs on 86 pitches. All of that damage came against him in the first inning, which I think makes sense. Obviously, his first start since March of last year, where he gave up 2 walks, 2 hit by pitches, 2 wild pitches, 1 earned run. The next 4 innings, 0 hits, 0 walks, 7 strikeouts for Robbie Ray. Velocity way up, 2.3 miles per hour on the fastball. The slider was up almost 5 miles per hour in this one. So overall, I think very, very encouraging. His pants were still way, way too tight, but that's the Robbie Ray experience. Scott, 73% rostered. I know we've been talking about these injury returnees as lottery tickets.
Yeah.
I think I want this lottery ticket on my fantasy team.
Yeah, if you already picked up Robbie Ray, it feels like you won the lottery, and he's one of the more available ones, it turns out still. So you have a chance to play the lottery already knowing the winner. I mean, maybe I'm getting a little ahead of myself saying Robbie Ray is an ace now, but you mentioned the velocity increase, and that's comparing to when we last saw him in 2023, when he made just 1 3-inning start and didn't look very good and wound up having Tommy John surgery. Even if you compare his velocities in this game here Wednesday to 2021, his Cy Young winning season, they were even higher than that. And partly, I'm sure he was just amped up. If you look at what he was throwing at AAA on his rehab assignment, it was pretty good, but it wasn't quite as good as 2021. And so I think just like the adrenaline and all of that helped to bring Robbie Ray up another level. But the point is he wasn't down. He was close to that 2021 level when he won the Cy Young. And if he can come anywhere close to that and continue to throw strikes, which has been an issue for him throughout his career, then I think the outcome could be very good. It wasn't that long ago we considered Robbie Ray an ace in fantasy.
I mean, really, we haven't not considered him a must-start pitcher, right? Because 2022, he wasn't an ace, but he was a must-start pitcher. 2023,
if you begin in 2021, yeah, I mean, he had some rough years with the
that's what I mean.
But,
it was, if you watched the start, I mean, early on, he could not throw his slider, especially at all. And then that was one thing that I noticed in his rehab outings was he was throwing his knuckle curve way more than his slider in the rehab outings. And I was wondering if it was similar to Gerrit Cole and Gavin Williams. And it was just, he didn't feel comfortable throwing the slider as much. The knuckle curve's been a really good pitch for him throughout his career. So I was interested to see what was going to happen there. But as it turned out, he threw the slider 31% of the time in this one and got 6 whiffs. The knuckle curve was phenomenal as well. 7 whiffs on 15 pitches. The fastball, 9. So all 3 of the pitches were working really well for Robbie Ray. He looked great. I mean, the slider and curveball, he threw them in the zone 30% of the time. That's what he's going to do with those pitches, though. He's looking for chases. That's the goal there. But yeah, once he settled in, I mean, the first inning, kind of a disaster. 2 walks, 2 wild pitches, 2 hit by pitches, gave up a run without a hit, and comes back in the second, strikes out the side. So
And this is
I'm
the
very
Dodgers.
encouraged, and this is the Dodgers. Yeah, so I would say, I mean, we're talking, Scott. I know you wrote this piece on the site yesterday, comparing Senga, Ray, and Kershaw and Jeffrey Springs.
Mm-hmm.
It might just be that we've seen Ray and we have not seen the other guys. I'm going to go ahead and say, having seen Ray already, I'd rather have him than any of the other guys.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
it's possible Senga. I think Senga and Kershaw both pitch on Thursday.
Senga on Friday.
Senga on Friday. It's possible that by this weekend, those guys come out and do the same thing, and it looks different. But
yeah,
Robbie Ray is certainly the leader in the clubhouse.
There are no guarantees for these pitchers coming back from long-term injuries, as we've seen with Max Scherzer and Gavin Williams and Shane Baz and look, Gerrit Cole again.
Even Gerrit Cole, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that Robbie Ray comes back and looks like a total world beater, yeah, I think that immediately vaults him to the top of that priority list. I mean, Kershaw and Senga are almost universally rostered at this point. Springs is still out there in a number of leagues, but Robbie Ray needs to be universally rostered now too.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but Robbie Ray, the pitcher we saw in the first inning, we could still see some of that moving forward. I mean, this has been a volatile pitcher throughout his career and has struggled with control at times, and he still only threw 59% of his pitches for strikes here. So I just want to keep everything in perspective that, while this start was amazing, there could still be some ups and downs for Robbie Ray moving forward. He is 73% rostered. He's home against the Oakland A's next week. And I'll throw a few names your way. Would you be willing to drop these for Robbie Ray? They're all over 75% rostered. First up is Marcus Stroman.
Yep.
Sure.
What about Luis Severino?
Sure.
Yep.
Andrew Abbott.
Yep.
Sure.
Yusei Kikuchi.
Yep.
I think so.
And Mackenzie Gore.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So again, those are all over 75%. If you have those on your team and Robbie Ray is available, go out and make that swap. Let's go over to Scott, your player of the night.
Okay. My player of the night is Vladimir Guerrero. Let's talk about this guy. So he went 2 for 3 with a walk and a home run, his 18th of the season, but more notably, his 5th in 6 games on a power binge here. And that was after a big home run month in June. In fact, since June 1st, Vladimir Guerrero has hit 12 home runs. Month and a half's time, I guess almost 2 months' time, 12 home runs. And if he'd been on that pace all along, I think we would have been thrilled and saying he was a great big value in round 3. There has been an underlying change here since the start of June, beyond just the fact he's hit a bunch of home runs.
It's the hair.
The hair, okay, yeah, the fact he shaved his head. 36.1% fly ball rate since the start of June. That's not high. But prior to that, it was 26.7. So it is much higher than it was during the couple months when he wasn't hitting home runs. And this has kind of been an issue for Vladimir Guerrero throughout. Of course, he was the best player in fantasy in 2021, right? That was the year. But since then, yeah, that was the year. Since then, he's been a disappointment, and a lot of it has to do with putting the ball on the ground too much. A lot of it has to do with the direction he's hitting the ball. But he seems to be optimizing that. Maybe optimize isn't the right word, because he could go further with it, but he seems to have gotten to a place where it all works again. And since we've seen it from him before, since we've known he's capable of crushing the ball all this time, I'm feeling pretty good about Vladimir Guerrero at this point. And he was one of a few first basemen that I moved ahead of. I don't know. Maybe this is. I don't know. Matt Olson. I moved Matt Olson behind Vladimir Guerrero, though I don't think that's going to blow anybody's mind at this point.
Did you move Vlad ahead of Pete Alonso?
I need to think about that. Yeah,
I think it's close.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's one that you can also do. I will say, like, a big part of it is the power hasn't been there all season, but we're going on now basically 3 months of Vlad playing up to his expected stats, which is something that he had not done since 2021, as you talked about. April, 363 xWOBA, 307 WOBA. That's not great. May, 421 xWOBA, 410 WOBA. June, 400 xWOBA, 409 WOBA. July, he's actually underperforming a little bit, at least entering today. 390 xWOBA, 342 WOBA, but still hitting for power. The batting average hasn't been quite as good, but I think you'll take the 5 home runs in, 72 plate appearances or whatever it is. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, Vlad had he had a perception, I think, that he had underperformed his expected stats a lot. It was really just last season. 2022, he was disappointing, but he also just wasn't as good. The underlying numbers took a huge step back. Last year, the underlying numbers improved and the performance didn't. We're basically like, I think there was a lot of like, 2021 was a result of playing in Buffalo and Dunedin and all that. And, maybe there was something to it, but it also might have just been that he was really good in 2021. He hadn't been as good since, but the underlying numbers were still quite good and he was likely to perform to that level. So I don't know. It was frustrating. And I'll admit that I had certainly lost some faith in Vladimir Guerrero's ability to perform.
Yeah.
Like an elite player.
Drought,
but
it's hard not to.
The underlying numbers were still really good. And so there was reason to be optimistic even amidst that. And now we're seeing, a 2.5, 3 month stretch where he's actually playing up to them. And lo and behold, he's still a really good hitter.
So that fly ball rate I mentioned since June 1st, 36.1%. This is from Fangraphs, by the way. 2021 was his career high for that, 36.5%. So it's pretty much right in line with that.
Yeah. And I think there's still another level he can even get to because
the
fly ball rate is up. The pull rate is still not where it should be. So, man, and I know it's hard to say because he really is, he's more of a pure hitter than just a power hitter. He's someone that just hits to all fields. So I get that that's his approach. But if he ever really wanted to tap into even more power than we've seen, upping that pull rate, I think, is how Vlad Jr. will eventually get there. Chris, let's go over to you. Your player of the night.
Yeah, my player of the night, Xander Bogaerts, who I think is one of the most interesting players to rank right now. And I think after my updates today, I moved him a couple spots ahead of you guys. He's, I think, my number 15 shortstop, number 10 second baseman. I think you guys both had him like 17, 18 at shortstop. And there's some really interesting things going on. He went 4 for 4 with a walk today. He has multiple hits in, I believe, 6 of 7 games since coming off the IL. He has struck out 1 time in 30 plate appearances since coming off the IL. He also has no extra base hits in that time. All 14
of his hits are singles.
14 for 29. He's hitting 483 with a 483 ISO. And so what I expected to see when I looked into the numbers was that Xander Bogaerts really hadn't been very good, that it was just good BABIP luck and there was nothing sustainable to it. That's not actually the case, though. His average exit velocity is up to 89.9 miles per hour in the month of July. It was 86.2 prior to the injury. His launch angle is up slightly to like 9 degrees or something. It's not great, but it's not like he's hitting a ton of ground balls. His expected WOBA in the month of July is 353. This is a guy for his career who has outperformed his expected stats by 24 points overall. And that's been consistent whether he was in Boston, whether he was when he made the move to San Diego. He was still, I think, 22 points better than his expected WOBA last year. That's just a consistent skill that Xander Bogaerts has shown. I'm kind of thinking Xander Bogaerts, even coming off the shoulder injury, is back to being pretty much a must-start player, which I don't know about you guys, but I feel like there was just a lot of skepticism about that. So I'm pretty impressed with what he's done so far, and I'm happy to have him where I do.
I think the biggest question is how much power are we going to get, Chris?
Yeah.
Because, during this, again, we're dealing with a really small sample size. He's only been back for 7 games so far, but the 6 games that we have data for on Fangraphs, a 54% ground ball rate. So,
and he changed his swing. He talked about he's doing a 2-handed follow through rather than letting go of his right hand when he swings. And maybe that's going to sap his power, but like a 55% ground ball rate. Okay. That's not good. That's higher than you'd want, but it's not so high that I would think, Xander Bogaerts just can't hit for power. He's not a huge power hitter anyway, but if he's going to be a good source of batting average and hit a 15 homer pace the rest of the way and run a little bit as he was before the injury and last year, 19 steals, I still think it's probably a must-start player.
All right, let's take our first break, and when we return, we will get into the news and notes. We'll do that right after this.
At CBS Sports Golazo Network, we're bringing you the game.
Madness of Messi arrives!
Breaking down the game.
This is unlike anything else in the world.
And changing the game.
Get it all for nil.
That means free.
Whoa.
And all day long!
24/7.
Welcome back in the news and notes. Christian Yelich, big news here. Christian Yelich was placed on the IL with lower back inflammation, and season-ending surgery is possible. He'll see a spine specialist on Thursday to discuss the next steps. Yelich is still an amazing player when he's on the field, but this is always the concern with him. I have no Yelich this year, and I was just worried about this back injury popping up. Now, to this point, I've been dead wrong, and he was amazing. But
it had been a while since he had been amazing, to be fair. He was good last year because he got the steals back up, but the last amazing year was 2019, I believe.
Yeah. So, but this is a consistent concern, and I don't, he's only getting older. I don't think it's going to go away. So hopefully he's not done for the year, but we will wait to learn more on Christian Yelich. Astros GM Dana Brown said Wednesday that he's optimistic Kyle Tucker will return from the IL before September. What are we talking about here? This has been one of the weirdest things that we've witnessed in fantasy. Over the past couple of years, it's very odd.
So the thing is, it's probably not weird. They're probably just not being honest about the injury.
Fair.
Right? Like there was one quote where someone mentioned it was a bone bruise, and that's probably what the injury is, but it's pretty clear that they've just been obfuscating about this injury all along. And maybe it's just more serious than they initially thought, but they haven't been 100. It's very similar to the Justin Verlander situation, actually.
Why would they do that? Maybe I'm dumb, but I can't really see a major competitive advantage.
I don't think there's a major competitive advantage, but I think my galaxy brain theory is that teams around professional sports saw the Patriots and the San Antonio Spurs have this historic run of dominance in the 2000s and 2010s with Greg Popovich and Bill Belichick gleefully lying to the media about injuries at every turn. And I think there are some people in sports who have internalized that as that is part of why they were good. And it's no, they had Hall of Fame caliber players everywhere and great coaches. But the Kyle Tucker injury and the Justin Verlander injury are actually both very similar. If you remember, Justin Verlander, he's day to day. He's going to throw a bullpen session, and it's been a month and a half for Justin Verlander as well. It seems clear that they're not being, and they have no obligation to be 100% honest with us. I think it's pretty clear that these injuries are more serious than they initially let on, and they just haven't updated us on the truth of them.
And what's crazy is since Kyle Tucker has gone down, the Astros have gone on this crazy run. Yeah. They are now in first place in the AL West, which I think when he went down, they were 7-8 games out, which is... Yeah,
I mean, the Mariners completely collapsed as well. Yeah, they were 10 games up at one point.
Yep. Mike Trout will return to Los Angeles to undergo further evaluation. He left his rehab start Tuesday with soreness in his surgically repaired left knee. Julio Rodriguez, who is on the IL with an ankle sprain, will be reevaluated on August 1st and is unlikely to return in the minimum time. Tanner Bybee left his start after 5 innings due to lower extremity cramping. Sounds like he's avoided any serious injury. Brian Reynolds was scratched from the lineup Wednesday after his back locked up on him, and manager Derek Shelton said Reynolds is fine and will travel with the team for their road trip, which begins on Friday. Cody Bellinger could be activated as soon as the team's July 26th to 31st road trip. He's been out with a fractured left middle finger. Michael Harris was transferred to the 60-day IL, which means he can't return until mid-August at the earliest. Some Rangers news: Josh Young will begin a rehab assignment Friday at AA. He had previously played 4 rehab games from June 16th to the 20th before being pulled off with soreness in his wrist.
Was it really that long ago?
Yeah, over a month from now, which is crazy. And manager Bruce Bochy also said Evan Carter is about a week behind Young, so hopefully he starts his rehab the following week, the first week of August. Jorge Mateo was placed in the IL with a dislocated left elbow. Connor Norby will be recalled on Thursday and is having a great season in the minors. 297 batting average, 16 homers, 13 steals, a 908 OPS. He's only 10% rostered. Scott, any interest in Connor Norby? I think we would all agree there's talent there, but the last time he got called up, he did not play every day.
Well, there's that. I think it's more likely that he would now because there's less that they need to see from Ramon Arias. But the bigger issue is that he's one of these low exit velo guys, and I know people get tired of me talking about that, but 87.7 mile per hour average, 106.9 max. That's pretty whatever. We can see hitters overcome that, and he has been a good power hitter in the minors with good pull rates on fly balls, but is that going to work for a right-handed hitter at Camden Yards?
Yeah.
I'm skeptical of that. So I wouldn't say I'm eager to pick up Connor Norby. If you play in the sort of league deep enough that there's just nobody ever interesting on the waiver wire, then he's going to be interesting by default. But I think he's just a placeholder until either Kobe Mayo or perhaps even Jackson Holiday, who's back to playing the field and hitting well, arrives.
Yandy Diaz, who's currently on the restricted list due to a personal issue, has no timeline to return. Byron Buxton was removed after getting hit by a pitch on his right forearm. X-rays revealed no fracture, and he was diagnosed with a forearm contusion. Walker Buehler will begin a rehab assignment at AAA on Friday. He said he felt good following his bullpen session Tuesday. He is still up to 80% rostered. That's another name. I mean, if you're running out of IL spots, there's no problem dropping Walker Buehler for someone like Robbie Ray, right?
Yeah.
No problem at all, even if you're not. Anyway, yeah, I would much rather us to Robbie Ray than Walker Buehler. Anyway, you have to make that happen.
Agreed.
JP Crawford is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks with a fractured right pinky finger. Christian Scott plans to treat the UCL sprain in his right elbow with rest and rehab with the hope of returning this season.
He said that he had a similar issue last year. I think he missed 21 days. So for whatever that's worth, he said it felt around the same.
The Dodgers optioned Landon Knack back to AAA with Tyler Glasnow coming off the IL. Blue Jays top pitching prospect Ricky Tiedemann will receive a third opinion on his left elbow/forearm. Initial imaging came back negative, but clearly there's something they don't like in there. The Red Sox signed Alex Cora to a 3-year, $21.75 million contract extension, making him the second highest paid manager in baseball, and very well deserved. I didn't see this, but
I added this one to the notes. Just continue the bit.
Jaden Fielder, son of Prince, signed with the Brewers. That's great.
Grandson of Cecil. Worth noting.
Third generation. Did he sign it as a player?
Yeah, he was undrafted out of college.
The grandsons of players from my childhood.
He's going to hit 319 home runs just like his dad and granddad did. I mean, lock it in.
I'm rooting for it. That would be awesome. Latest trade rumors. The Yankees are interested in Jonathan India. Apparently, the Reds aren't expected to make India available unless they fall out of the playoff race in the next week. And Also with the Yankees, they have concerns about how Jazz Chisholm's personality would fit into their clubhouse. This is the same team that traded for Josh Donaldson one season after he ripped Gerrit Cole for using sticky substances.
They traded for Alex Verdugo from their rivals after their rivals got sick of having him around, benched him for loafing, and he like showed up to a game late and got benched. This is, you know what? You don't get to have him now. All right.
I agree. I mean, it's good. If there's any truth to it, it's pretty ridiculous. The Astros are among teams interested in Isaac Paredes.
That is like the dream trade scenario. It would be so funny to watch Isaac Paredes hit like 47 home runs with an average home run distance of like 319 feet. Yeah. It would be amazing.
And the Orioles are willing to trade Ryan Mountcastle and Cedric Mullins.
That's also Ryan Mountcastle getting away from Camden Yards. Also a dream trade scenario. Would love to see that.
Yep, 100%. Let's talk about the Broncos, who defeated the Patriots 20-7 here on Wednesday. The Rockies, that is, put up 20 runs on 21 hits, including 4 homers. Brenton Doyle continues his ridiculous July, 2 for 4 with a grand slam. He hit his 17th home run, had 5 RBI, and so far in the month, batting .380 with 10 homers and a 1337 OPS. Ezekiel Tovar went 3 for 6 with a 17th homer. Michael Toglia continues to hit well, 3 for 5 with a double, 2 runs, and 2 RBI. Since being recalled on June 6th, he's batting .242 with 12 homers, 29 RBI, and 4 steals. Brendan Rodgers, 4 for 5 with a double, continues to be a name you can stream whenever they're home in Coors Field, but just a huge offensive output here for the Rockies. Scott, does Michael Toglia and Brendan Rodgers need to be more rostered than they are? Toglia is at 42%, Rodgers at 22%.
I mean, the overall power output for Rodgers is still pretty lacking. I understand the incentive to play him at home, though. Is that enough to keep him on your roster in the meantime? I'd lean no on that. Toglia has, I've kind of been lumping him together with Lawrence Butler because they have the same strengths and weaknesses, hit the ball very hard, but not often enough. And they both hit 3 homers just before the All-Star break, and they both had great matchups coming out of the break. Butler, of course, has been very hot, continued to be very hot since the second half started. Toglia, not as much, so it was nice to see him come through with a big game here. Interestingly, Toglia, with those high exit velocities, is underperforming his expected batting average by a considerable margin. His expected batting average is only in the 240s, but still, it'd be nice to see him. Or did he get up to that now? I guess he got up to that with this big game, right? Or at least since being recalled, he's about hitting 240. So I guess during the time since he's come back, he's lived up to expectations, and that would be certainly a worthwhile player in roto leagues with the extra corner infield spot, the extra outfield spots. I wouldn't say Toglia has as much juice right now as Lawrence Butler, but I do think he's, worth gambling on in those formats wherever he's still available.
And who did they do all this damage against? Nick Pivetta, 2 2/3 innings, 10 hits, 8 runs, 7 of those earned, 2 homers allowed in this one. He still had a lot of whiffs, but lots of hard contact. Obviously, the velocity was down between 1.2 and 1.5 miles per hour on his 3 main pitches. His 3 starts before this in July were pretty awesome, and I'm pretty sure we might have brought this up over the weekend, like just benching Pivetta because it was in Coors Field, but I don't know that there's anything actionable here. Chris, what do you think?
I mean, we had when was it? Back in April or something? We had the solar eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
You go outside and you stare at a solar eclipse and you hurt your eyes. You can't get mad at the solar eclipse because your eyes are hurt. You knew the risks involved. It's the same thing with Nick Pivetta starting at Coors Field. I started Nick Pivetta this week in one league. I have nobody to blame for that but myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. He'd been so good lately, just shut down the Dodgers last time out 3 turns ago. had a no-hit bid going against the Marlins. And I've gotten pretty lax about Coors Field because the Rockies offense is so bad and the environment just league-wide has been so favorable to pitchers that we've seen some really good outings at Coors Field this season. Of course, just recently, Hayden Birdsong, the latest example. But you don't want to miss out on the big outing from the pitcher who's capable of high outcomes like Pivetta has been and has done lately. So I think I started Pivetta in most of the leagues where I have him too. And yeah, it just gotta, it was kind of a, well, a couple things. I should mention, I guess you already did mention, Frank, that the velocity was down a little bit for Pivetta. So I haven't seen any reports related to that. It could just be a one-off. I don't want to go too far down that path, but yes, maybe we'll come to find out that there was meaning behind that, and there is more reason to be concerned about Pivetta here. But in addition to the Coors Field angle here, I do kind of take the start from Pivetta and so many other pitchers today. Gerrit Cole. I don't think I'm going to be able to list them off fast enough, but there were just, I mean, Tyler Glass now to an extent. I know you could blame it on him returning from the IL. I don't know. There were a few others. I kind of get in this like here we go again feeling. Now that the ball is playing differently, we've talked before. It's carrying much better in July. Many more fly balls are turning into home runs. And remember how things were playing out last year, where it was just like we'd constantly be getting blindsided by the starts, sort of like Nick Pivetta had here today. And are we going to deal with that? Is the glob going to return? It's been a few weeks since I've mentioned the glob. I know you missed it, Frank.
Oh, yeah.
Is it coming back? I don't know. I'm certainly not going to make moves assuming it will, but I am happy to sit here and wonder and whine about it.
Regarding the Rockies specifically at Coors Field, they have a 753 team OPS entering today. Certainly it went up. That's the 8th highest among all teams at home. And so it's not a great matchup. It's also not one that you necessarily have to avoid. But I think the thing you have to keep in mind is just because the Rockies don't have a great offense, the ball still moves differently at Coors Field. And so, you know, we talked about it with Birdsong's really good start where we just don't know if that's transferable. It also, you know, specifically for a pitcher like Nick Pivetta, who relies so much on his non-fastball pitches, it's a randomizing effect, I guess is the way I would put it. It doesn't necessarily mean every pitcher is going to struggle there. Some pitchers might do really well there. It's just pitching at Coors Field is far less predictable than any other environment in baseball, even though the Rockies themselves are not they have the same team OPS at home as the Orioles do. So it's like bad matchup, but not horrible matchup. You know, Camden Yards obviously a very good pitcher's park. So it's just to say that it's not that you have to avoid everyone at Coors Field. It just injects a significant amount of uncertainty into your projections.
From one rough pitcher outing to another, Gerrit Cole, who I think maybe you should just never start him against the Mets ever again, because it turns out, I didn't realize this, he has terrible career numbers against the New York Mets. So 5 2/3 innings, 6 runs allowed, 3 more homers allowed in the start, 10 hard hits, 90.9 average exit velocity. In 2 starts against the Mets this season, 9 2/3 innings, 12 earned runs, 7 homers allowed by Gerrit Cole. 9 career starts against the Mets, 6.99 ERA, a 173 whip, 14 home runs allowed by Gerrit Cole. And what's even weirder about this start is he did what we've been asking him to do. He leaned on his slider, threw it 30% of the time, and it didn't matter, Scott.
I don't know that we've been asking him to do it. We've been wondering why he hasn't been doing it, I think would be the better way to put it.
Slider is his best pitch, right? Like, we've
wanted when his slider is right, it's his best pitch, but maybe his slider isn't right. He's coming back from a significant elbow issue. And so, yeah, he had faded that slider, was throwing it only 10% of the time, was having success kind of using a cutter in its place. The last 2 starts were great. But yeah, he tried mixing in that slider again, 30% instead of 10%, and it did not go well. So my theory is that he's trying to get it back, and it's not all the way there yet. And so I don't know that I necessarily want him trying to do that, because it seemed to go well enough with the cutter. So well, in fact, that in my last rankings update, I had moved Gerrit Cole back up to 13th. I said, hey, he's must start again. And now I'm going to have to reconsider.
Yeah.
I don't know that I completely buy that, though, because entering this start, his slider was still his best whiff pitch this season. I mean, it was a small sample. He was only using it 10% of the time, but a 36% whiff rate. So I think if we wanted more strikeouts, then yeah, we probably did want to see Gerrit Cole use his slider more, or at least, use it enough to get a feel for it. And then hopefully we get on a roll with that pitch, but that wasn't,
it didn't work.
So the way I would have put it is, it's hard to see a path to Gerrit Cole being Gerrit Cole without his slider being what it's been in the past. Like, it's not impossible. The cutter had been a good pitch for him last season when he, started to expand its usage, but we had never seen Gerrit Cole pitch like an ace without that slider. And so while I do want to see it, it's also, like Scott said, it's possible that the slider's not there yet. And the path to the most successful version of Gerrit Cole right now might not be through the slider. But if that's the case, then I also wouldn't expect him to be Gerrit Cole. Am I making sense there?
Yeah.
Who would you expect him to be?
You asked it as a joke, but I'll answer it seriously for the
No,
audience.
I actually was asking seriously, and then the humor of it hit me after I said it.
I've ranked him. I think him and Carlos Rodon have been very close for me. Gerrit Cole a little higher, but
you hate Carlos Rodon.
They're in the 25 to 35 range.
Oh, you don't hate Carlos Rodon. I have Carlos Rodon 66th. You have him 35th.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I've been
Carlos Rodon.
I've been steady Eddie on Carlos Rodon throughout. I never got as high.
How bad he is,
but I never got as high as you guys did when things were going well. I never got as low as you guys did. The thing for me with them, and
he's always talked about how bad Carlos Rodon is.
Gausman is another guy in this range where I have Gausman lower than those guys. But the thing is, for me, I expect good starts from them at various points. I just don't expect them to pitch like aces. It's chasing the upside that all three of them have shown at various points. That's the way I view it. And so with Cole, I think he'll have stretches where he looks like himself, including the most recent start. I don't expect that consistently until he can get that slider back.
Gerrit Cole, I believe, is 91% started on CBS, and I get why. He was coming off great starts before this. He's at the Phillies next week. What do you do?
It's gonna be tough to start him.
Really start him there?
Not eager to. So I'm probably going to move him. I said I moved him to 13th. I'm probably going to drop him back down to 21st now, which puts him behind Sonny Gray and Freddie Peralta, ahead of Joe Ryan and Grayson Rodriguez, who of course are not totally bankable either. Like that's what you have to keep in mind. Like when you're wringing your hands over Gerrit Cole, is like, okay, but how many pitchers can you slide, especially the way the ball's flying now?
Yeah.
How many pitchers can you put in your lineup and trust them to just be, locked down every time?
Look, Justin Steele looked like that for a while,
right.
And then the last two starts have been a little rough. Obviously, Ranger Suarez, I don't think you can view as that guy. Framber Valdez, all these guys are in that range of my rankings. Tanner Houck has had some rough stretches. Nick Lodolo, I certainly don't view that way, right? Like outside of, it's feeling a little globby right now, where outside of, I don't know, the top 14, it feels pretty like Freddie Peralta, Sonny Gray, Pablo Lopez. Like those are all guys outside of my top 15 who I look at them and I'm like, I'm going to start them. I expect good things from them, but I certainly can't say we're in the clear. These guys are all going to be sub 3 ERA guys moving forward. I don't feel that way about a lot of those guys.
And to that point, I wasn't here to talk about Gerrit Cole yesterday, but he's going to slide back up to 13th when I move Cole down. I can't bring myself to lower Gerrit Cole with the workload concerns much lower than that, because there just aren't that many pitchers who are anywhere close to as good as Gerrit Cole. He's like at that dividing line you mentioned between the total lockdown aces and the ones who are kind of squishy.
All right, let's take our final break, and when we return, we will talk about some waiver wire hitters right after this.
There are some things in life that you can't quite explain.
An extraordinary story.
Maybe it sounds flawless, looks effortless, or makes you feel like a part of history.
The first ever goal for BFC.
And when all of those phenomenons come together, it's perfect. Pitch perfect.
Welcome back in. Let's talk waiver wire hitters. And first, we will start with corner infield options. Nate Lowe has turned things up over the past month, 2 for 4 with his 8th home run. Last 23 games, he's batting .298 with 6 homers and 21 RBI. Eugenio Suarez also hitting better as of late, 2 for 4 with his 12th homer. Last 21 games, batting .297 with 6 homers, 19 RBI, and OPS over 900. Juan Yepez continues to hit since getting a shot here with the Nationals, 1 for 4 with his 2nd home run. He's batting .368 with an OPS over 1,000 in his first 15 games. And Rowdy Tellez, 2 for 3 with his 9th home run. And since the start of June, 38-game sample, Rowdy Tellez is batting .328 with 8 homers, 28 RBI, and an OPS over 900. Scott, how would you rank Tellez, Yepez, Suarez, and Nate Lowe?
Nate Lowe's number 1. I don't really care that much about the others. So I would rank them Yepez, Suarez, Tellez, but I don't really care about them.
Yeah, Yepez and Tellez are 2 that I've seen in deeper roto leagues with corner infield spots, and I just think they need to be rostered in at least those formats. Where would Tolia rank on that list, Scott?
Oh, ahead of him. Ahead of even
everybody?
Ahead of even Nate Lowe right now. I'd rather, like, Nate Lowe's the safer option. And like, I couldn't see dropping Nate Lowe in a 15-team league, but like, nobody's going to drop Nate Lowe in a 15-team league. So yeah, I'll say Tolia.
I'm a little more optimistic about Yepez than Scott is. Like, it's a long shot, right? Like, I'm not necessarily expecting Juan Yepez to be a difference maker. It's 15 games in a row with a hit, however, including...
Is that all? Has he had a hit in every game?
Every single game. I think 7 multi-hit games in that stretch.
It's not crazy though, Chris. In a year where Jesse Winker and Jurickson Profar have had
I mean,
it's not crazy.
And we're talking about a guy who has a pretty good minor league track record. He's 26 years old. There was a stretch when he first got called up for the Cardinals where he looked pretty useful. Remember, 12 home runs in 76 games in 2022. The minor league track record is decent.
438 at AAA this year as a 26-year-old.
Yeah,
in a hitter-friendly league.
I'm not expecting him to be a difference maker, but if nothing else, he's locked in right now. And in a, certainly any 15-team league where you need is he first base and outfield eligible?
Yep.
I think it's worth taking a flyer just to see. Like you mentioned, Jurickson Profar has a long track record of not being useful and has been a lot more than useful this season. So I just don't want to write off the possibility for Juan Yepez when he's locked into an everyday role and showing something right now.
2 outfielders. Do either of these names matter? Colton Cowser, 2 for 2 with a double, a walk, and 3 RBI. He has started all 5 games in the second half so far. And in those games, he has 7 hits, 1 homer, and 2 steals. And Jake Fraley had himself a big game, 3 for 5 with a sock and a shoe. He's hitting .282 on the season. He also only has 2 home runs. So 24% rostered. That's probably right. Is Is there anything here with Cowser or Jake Fraley?
I mean, Cowser just, how do we know that he's played 5 games in a row? Okay, great. What do the next 5 games look like? Right? Like it at the end of the first half, it looked like Heston Kjerstad was kind of pushing him out of the way. And the Orioles need to make some consolidation moves here to free up some playing time. And until they do, it's going to be hard to buy in. But you mentioned the reports that Ryan Mountcastle and Cedric Mullins are possibly on the block. That would certainly open up an opportunity. Might just be an opportunity for Kobe Mayo, but it's still, if you want to get ahead of it, Colton Cowser is someone who has flash difference-making potential and obviously has that kind of talent. So, if you want to add him ahead of the deadline just in case, I think that's reasonable.
If you need speed in the middle infield, Xavier Edwards has been racking up the hits lately, 3 for 3 with a walk, a run, and an RBI. And since being called up early in June, he is batting .381 with 10 runs scored, 4 steals, and an .888 OPS. Scott, in deeper leagues at middle infield, would you rather take a shot on Edwards or Connor Norby?
Edwards. I'm kind of interested in Edwards because he has a couple of standout tools, and it's the profile that rarely works in the modern game, the slap hitter. But he slapped his way, this is Xavier Edwards we're talking about, he slapped his way to a .330 batting average of AAA this year, a .351 batting average there last year with a lot of stolen bases. So he's kind of Luis Castillo-like, the second baseman from 20 years ago, not the starting pitcher.
And for what it's worth, decent chance he's like leading off for the Marlins from July 31st on, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They DFA'd Tim Anderson.
Yep. And he's played, I think Edwards has played every game since then.
In part because they wanted to give Edwards more playing time. I mean, Anderson was doing nothing for them, so I'm sure that played a role in the decision too. But I'd picked up Edwards. I'd stashed him for a while in the 2014 Dynasty League and ultimately had to drop him as a roster crunch matter. And I regret it right now because he is doing so far exactly what he was doing in the minors.
In deeper 2-catcher leagues, Kyle Higashioka has hit well, and he's playing much more than Luis Campusano. He has started 4 of 5 games in the second half. He went 3 for 5 with his 12th home run. And last 17 games, Higashioka batting .305 with 7 homers, 22 RBI, tons of fly balls to the pull side. Chris, 15-team 2-catcher leagues, would you rather add someone like Higashioka or Austin Wells, who's hit better lately also?
Wells, I think, has more recent prospect pedigree. I think, was it yesterday that he had a 111-mile-per-hour home run? If it wasn't yesterday, it was Monday. But yeah, there were 4 batted balls over 110 miles per hour by the Yankees, and one of them was Austin Wells. The other 2 were Juan Soto and Aaron Judge, obviously. There does seem to be some legit power upside for Austin Wells, who I think is the primary catcher for the Yankees now, too.
Yeah, and he's been batting cleanup lately for the Yankees as well. But that's
what?
a whole nother issue.
How did that happen?
Yeah, they are searching right now and obviously not finding much. Not many waiver wire pitchers from Wednesday, but 2 names. Matt Waldron in shallower leagues. He's already 79% rostered. A quality start at the Nationals, 6 innings, 3 runs with 4 strikeouts there. And Yariel Rodriguez pitched well against Tampa Bay. 5 2/3, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. Only had 6 whiffs on 73 pitches, but 4 starts in July for Rodriguez. A 2.01 ERA, a .76 whip, 25 strikeouts over 22 1/3. I think we already know about Waldron, and he's fine where he's at. But Chris, I know Rodriguez is someone that you've been optimistic about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he needs to be more than 26% roster?
Yeah, I think that could go up. The problem is, 2 problems. One, Orioles and Yankees next week. The Yankees might have a decent lineup by next week. We'll see.
I never thought I'd be begging for Stanton.
The bigger problem is,
where would you guys be without Juan Soto right now, honestly? Because that guy has been, killing it.
Probably in the same spot that they are in right now.
But yeah, Rodriguez only threw 73 pitches today. I think he's only had one start all season where he finished 6 innings, maybe 2. So the upside's limited. And that's pretty obvious. I think it makes it tough to trust him in any points leagues. But yeah, I think 26% is too low. And Matt Waldron I don't understand why he throws his other pitches. Like, I know it's not that simple. I know it's not just throw your best pitch. But like in this instance, his knuckleball is so clearly better than everything else. I'm not sure, like, if Matt Waldron didn't have a knuckleball, I'm not sure he's a major league pitcher. And so I just don't, he should be throwing that pitch. He threw it 60% of the time, I think, in his most recent start before this one. That should be the floor, not like 35% or whatever it is when he'll randomly drop to 35%. Maybe there are some days when he just doesn't have it. I would still rather see Matt Waldron try to work through it with the knuckleball than plod along with sweepers and sinkers that aren't any good.
I mean, how much better do you think he can get? Because he's already blown away our expectations. He's been kind of a once in a decade sort of knuckleballer.
Well, it's more avoiding mediocre starts like this. Like his numbers
start with a 1 whip.
Quality 3 earned runs in 6 innings is a mediocre start. It is also a quality start technically, but
with a 1 whip,
we don't want a 4.5 ERA.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying,
but either way, the point
feels
is
a little nitpicky.
His numbers in starts where he throws the knuckleball at least 40% of the time are significantly better, and I don't understand the process. Even maybe the results wouldn't be that much different. I don't know, but it feels like a process failure. That's what I will say.
The only thing I noticed in this start is that his knuckleball had a 98 mile per hour average exit velocity. So I think that's part of the reason why he went away from it. But I get your point in that he could just try and work through those issues within the start and continue to lean on that knuckleball. Anything to add on Chase McDermott, who is one of the Orioles' top pitching prospects? He made his major league debut on Wednesday. He wasn't very good. He was at the Marlins, 4 innings, 3 runs. Had 3 strikeouts through 5 different pitches. Scott, anything here on McDermott? I'm not even sure that he'll stick around, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he just seems like a dime a dozen pitching prospect. Spencer Arrighetti, Hayden Birdsong. I know Hayden Birdsong's coming off a great start, but how we regarded him before that, where, okay, he can get some strikeouts, but he walks too many guys. And will he ever put it together? Maybe Hayden Birdsong has, and maybe McDermott could, but there's not like it's not worth clinging to that idea. If it happens, it happens, and we'll react to it then.
Yep. No, I was interested to see his debut, and then his debut wasn't very good, so we can move on. Yeah.
All right, this or that pitcher edition. I'm just gonna pit some pitchers up against each other who I think we all have ranked similarly. And first up, Aaron Nola turned in a solid start at the Twins, 6 innings, 1 run with 6 strikeouts. Luis Castillo, a great start up against the Angels, 6 shutout with 7 strikeouts there. Chris, who would you rather have, Nola or Luis Castillo? And anything to add?
I have Castillo just ahead, but it's, I think, 2 spots in the pitcher rankings, maybe 2 spots in the overall rankings as well. So you might as well flip a coin. I did have something to add on Castillo. Let me get my notes. Quality of contact has improved significantly in the month of July. He got hit hard Wednesday, a lot of like loud contact, but it was all on the ground. So when he gave up hits, they were mostly singles. I might have had 1 extra base hit allowed in this one. But overall, I think things are looking a lot better. He's still not getting the strikeouts overall the way he has in the past. It's 22 in 25 innings in July, 23 and 25 and 2/3. Yeah. I think probably something less than an ace is probably what I expect. Like in my pitching rankings, I have Castillo 8th. I have Dylan Cease 7th. It feels like there's a little bit of a gap there for me. I don't know about you guys. I know we have different orders of everybody, but that feels like there's probably a little gap there.
I I have, let's see, who are you missing from that range? George Kirby, maybe.
I have him a
higher
little.
on
I have him
George
a
Kirby?
little. I have 3 spots lower.
Logan
4
Gilbert.
spots. Yeah,
I
same.
have Kirby and Gilbert in between Reagans and Skeen. So I have them more in like the locked in total ace
That's fine. Yeah,
conversation.
I
As
think
for
the gap between like 8 and 13 is very, very slim for me.
As for Nola and Castillo, I do have Nola 1 spot ahead because Castillo's strikeout advantage doesn't exist anymore, and I think Nola's going to be a better whip source.
Let's talk about Justin Steele and Jack Flaherty. Steele, solid against the Brewers, 5 1/3, 2 runs allowed, 4 strikeouts, only had 6 whiffs on 98 pitches. Velocity was down in that start. And Jack Flaherty, another strong one at the Guardians, 6 innings, 1 unearned run with 6 strikeouts, had 13 whiffs on 96 pitches. Scott, who are you taking, Justin Steele or Jack Flaherty?
Jack Flaherty, the only reason I might consider Steele is because of Flaherty's continued health questions, but he's come back and put together 3 quality starts. One was an out shy of a quality start, and the whiffs have been there. The velocity was a little down in this one, so keep an eye on that, but the whiffs were there. He was facing a good Guardians lineup and turned in a good result. So I think at this point I'm willing to put the elbow issue aside and take Flaherty, especially since Steele he's been so hard to figure out. He clearly can't afford to walk batters like he's done in his last 2 starts, and he doesn't normally. But
was there an elbow injury for Flaherty?
Was it elbow or was it
shoulder?
shoulder?
It was a back injury, right?
Back.
Yeah, back.
Lat.
No, I think it was just back.
I thought it was just back,
like
but
back
the lat bone is connected to the backbone, so you know.
Okay, my bad. Back injury.
Yeah, I think this is another one where I might have Steele a couple spots ahead, but it's such a slim margin that I can't argue either way.
And the last 2, Zach Eflin and Nathan Eovaldi. Eflin, a solid start at the Blue Jays, 5 2/3, 2 runs with 4 strikeouts, leaned on the sinker in this start. And Nathan Eovaldi, a great outing up against the White Sox, 7 innings, 2 runs, 10 strikeouts, had 20 whiffs on 98 pitches. Chris, you are up. Eflin or Eovaldi?
I think I have Eflin ranked higher than Eovaldi. Part of that is just waiting for the bottom to fall out with Eovaldi, as it almost always does in the second half. But there's no question when he's rolling, he's a must-start pitcher. His velocity was down in his previous start. I didn't see the velocity reading in this one.
It was fine today. I was noticing that too, because he was bad last start. It was the rare blip with the velocity down about a mile per hour. Oh, and here it comes.
That's the canary in the coal mine, right? Like Eovaldi's had trouble maintaining his velocity the last couple of seasons. When that happens, things tend to go poorly for him, but I'm totally fine with Eovaldi ahead of Eflin as well, if you want to go that way. The one thing I would say with those 2 guys and Flaherty in particular is, where are they pitching in 7 days or 5 days, whatever it is? You know, like I think there's a decent chance all 3 of those guys get traded at the deadline. And Flaherty, the one thing with Flaherty, I thought the Orioles would be a good landing spot, but then I remembered that they tried that already last year and it was a disaster. Yeah. Apparently they're open to it again. According
he's
to a
different
report.
pitcher now.
So yeah, that would be one where Detroit's a really good place to pitch. There could be a park downgrade coming. If it was Baltimore, I'd feel even better about Jack Flaherty. And then, you know, Eflin and Eovaldi are both in kind of neutral to, you know, maybe pitchers' parks. So I don't think it would change their outlook either way if they got traded.
Okay.
I'm taking Eovaldi for what it's worth, just because, like, I'm not getting enough from Eflin, and I don't expect to at this point. So Eovaldi's giving me something now. Maybe the velocity will slip and he won't be worth using anymore, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Hitters who are streaking. Trey Turner continues his power binge in July, 2 for 5 with his 13th home run, his 10th homer in the month of July. Nick Castellanos has come alive over the past month. Last 31 games, he's batting .331 with 5 homers, 23 RBI, 2 steals, and an OPS over 900. Seiya Suzuki has been quite good since the start of June, 45 games, Batting .269, 9 homers, 28 RBI, 8 steals. The power and speed pace there is really great for Suzuki. Ketel Marte has homered in 3 straight and updated numbers since the start of June for him. Batting .340 with 12 homers and 5 steals. We already spoke about Vlad Jr. Francisco Lindor, guy is absolutely locked in. 3 for 6 with a double dong, 5 RBI. He has multiple homers in 2 of his last 3 games. And since being moved to the leadoff spot on May 18th, Lindor is batting .308 with 14 homers, 14 steals, and a .958 OPS. Anything that you'd like to add on these names? Lindor, Marte, Suzuki, Castellanos, and Trey Turner.
Here's a fun one. Trey Turner in the month of July, 10 home runs, has his lowest average exit velocity of any month this season. Baseball. That's fun.
The baseball. I mean, we said that about Colt Keith the other day too, Scott, which, he's having a great month, but the exit velocities aren't there. So makes you wonder.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't make me wonder if fly ball rates were up, pull rates were up, etc. I know that's not the case for Keith. So
fly ball rate is not up significantly for Trey Turner.
And by the way, tangentially related, Jackson Merrill had a good game today. 4 hits, right? No home runs. No home runs for all of July.
Yeah.
After Jackson Merrill hit, what was it, 8 in June? 9 in June. 9 in June, 0
9
in July.
in like a 10-game stretch, right?
And I bring it up because, okay, I basically bought in because, there's a lot to like in Merrill's profile, young player coming into his own. I could buy that. But there wasn't changes in the underlying batted ball profile. And maybe that was a giveaway that he wasn't quite all the way there yet.
Some leftovers from Wednesday's action. We'll start with the pitchers. Hunter Brown, another quality start. He was at the A's, 6 innings, 1 run with 8 strikeouts. He had 19 whiffs on 97 pitches. And Tyler Glasnow, not very sharp in his return up against the Giants. 5 innings, 2 runs, had 4 walks to 4 strikeouts. Velocity was fine. Coming back from that back injury, only threw 57% of his pitches for strikes. Scott, anything to add on Glasnow and Hunter Brown?
Yeah, I guess there's nothing to worry about here with Glasnow. Obviously, I wanted it to go better, but the fact that we have every reason to believe is healthy, I think is enough of a win for now, considering I have him as a top 5 pitcher. And there are going to be starts occasionally where control just kind of comes back to bite him. As for Hunter Brown, it was a great start, obviously, and I was encouraged that he went away from the fastball again, only 22%, because his best stretch of the season, that's what he was doing. He was fading his fastball, 4-seam fastball specifically, in favor of other pitchers, and 19 whiffs, wide distribution between his pitches, 5 on 3 different ones, and then 3 on the 4-seamer, which again, he threw only 22% of the time. So I think that's the best plan of attack for Hunter Brown, and I hope he sticks with it.
He's really giving me a lot of Mitch Keller vibes this season, where the pitch mix changes from one start to the next, 1 month to the next. He's always tinkering with things, but he has discovered a really useful equilibrium where it's not consistent ace production, although there will be stretches of that. But I think, it feels like Mitch Keller maybe 2 years ago, where he had a similar run where started to figure it out as the season went on. And, maybe next year can be the year that he takes another step forward.
Some hitting leftovers. Jarren Duran had another big game. This one in Coors Field, 3 for 5 with a triple and his 13th home run. Ellie De La Cruz, a monster game. He actually has the highest batting average in OPS in July than any other month this season. 3 for 5 with a sock and 2 shoes. He's up to 18 home runs and 51 steals on the season. Spencer Steer, I feel like he's had an underrated season. We don't talk about him much. Batting average is a little bit low, 241, but 15 homers, 64 RBI, 15 steals. Pretty productive for him. Corey Seager finished a triple short of the cycle, 4 for 5 with his 19th home run. Jurickson Profar has homered in back-to-back games. And Juan Soto is currently one of 2 players who can hit on the Yankees. 2 for 3 with a walk, a double, and his 26th homer. Last 11 games for Soto, He's batting .447 with 7 doubles, 5 homers, and 1 steal. He is so good. Anything else to add on those names?
So Steer, I'm always surprised at how highly he ranks because I feel like he's been like sneaky not that good as a hitter for a pretty long time. Remember, he was awesome the first like 3 weeks of the season. He had a 999 OPS after 20 games. Entering today in 79 games since then, he has a 693 OPS with a 215 batting average. But
wow,
still has 12 homers, still has 11 steals in that stretch, still has an 88 RBI pace. So he's still managed to be useful for fantasy, even when he hasn't been a great hitter. And I think that's a good sign because I think he's better than a 215 hitter, certainly.
He was mostly just terrible in May. You gave the numbers, I guess, that included May. But it was like he hit 177 with 629 OPS in May. April, June, and July, basically the same OPS, almost 800 in all 3 months.
Yeah. And the pace numbers entering Wednesday for Spencer Steer, 24 homers, 24 steals, 97 RBI, 25-25 with 100 ribbies. That's a pretty awesome season there for Spencer Steer. Some bullpen updates for the Phillies. Jeff Hoffman pitched a clean 8th inning with the game tied, facing 7, 8, and 9 in the Twins lineup. Gregory Soto got the 9th inning. He gave up a run on a hit by pitch and a hit. He took his 4th loss. On the other side for the Twins, Yohan Duran pitched a clean 9th with the game tied. He wound up with the win. For the Cubs, Hector Neris got the 9th inning with the game tied. He gave up a run on 2 hits, took his 3rd loss. On the other side for the Brewers, Trevor McGill was unavailable. Yoel Payamps struck out 2 for his 5th save. For the Angels, Carlos Estevez pitched a clean 9th inning for his 20th save. For the Royals, who...
You sure you don't want him as a closer, Frank? Carlos Estevez? He's been lights out.
Look, he can probably help the Yankees bullpen right now. Clay Holmes is shaky. They don't have anyone that can get the ball to him. I'm sorry. Right. I feel like I'm just ranting all
the next one is the more interesting one, so let's go ahead.
Yeah, the Royals, who are obviously competitive this year, looks like they could use a closer upgrade of their own. James McArthur got the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He gave up 5 runs, took his 5th home save and 4th loss. Tanner Scott, feel like he looked pretty good in a Royals uniform right now.
Well, Hunter Harvey. They already made the trade.
Yeah, Hunter Harvey.
He's not good either.
No, he's good.
And they gave up a ton for him.
He's much more talented than James McArthur. And the quote to remind you from JJ Piccolo, the GM, when they acquired him is, "It's not something where we're going to say he's our closer starting tomorrow."
Is the Royals GM really named JJ Piccolo?
Unless I'm pronouncing it wrong.
I have never heard that name in my life. Yeah. I feel like I'm being taken for a ride here.
That's a pretty cool name.
Yeah. But anyway, the starting tomorrow, I think, was the revealing line there. They see Hunter Harvey as a closer caliber reliever.
I mean, that was
James McArthur. It's inevitable that like they didn't want to remove him from the role until he gave him an excuse to. Just gave him a pretty big excuse to.
But like that was the thing when they made the trade, is like it was like a top 10 to 12 organizational prospect and a compensatory round pick that was like 34th overall or something. Like that was a huge haul for a reliever with 2 years of service of club control left. So yeah, it felt like they viewed him as more than just a setup guy.
I don't know. I thought Hunter Harvey was having a much worse season than he was. His previous, let's see here, 9 outings before Wednesday, he had a 11.25 ERA and a 2 whip during that.
Yeah, he's been shaky recently, but he was lights out before then. He was very good last year. And just like look at his stuff compared to McArthur's. It's not really a contest.
All right. So if you're looking for saves, if you have James McArthur, you might want to pick up Hunter Harvey as a bit of a handcuff situation there. For the D-backs, Paul Sewald got the 9th inning with a 4-run lead. He gave up 2 runs, but closed it out. He's been a little bit shaky over the past month as well. And then for the Blue Jays, Chad Green entered the 7th inning with the game tied, facing 6, 7, and 8 in the Rays lineup. He pitched a clean inning. Later in the game, Jimmy Garcia got the 9th inning with a 4-run lead. He gave up 1 run on a walk and a hit, but struck out 2. Garcia's one of the everything I've read is that he's one of the names getting the most attention on the trade market right now. So even if he is the Blue Jays closer for now, he might not be for long. He might get traded somewhere else. To stream or not to stream on Thursday, it's a short slate and not many options.
Not to stream.
Yeah, not to stream. Gavin Williams against the Tigers is
That's the only one, yeah.
maybe. And he hasn't even been great.
And even that, yeah, he hasn't earned even that.
Mm-hmm. On Friday, some names you can look at. Andrew Heaney at the Blue Jays. We have Drew Thorpe against the Mariners. Stream anybody against the Mariners.
Drew Thorpe against the Mariners. I've been down on Drew Thorpe, but I could see that going well, yeah.
Yeah. Some other options. Trevor Rogers at the Brewers. Luis Ortiz at the D-backs. Anybody?
Heaney, Thorpe, and Bayo are the only ones I would consider.
Yeah, Bayo gets the Yankees. So,
and Bayo is, I think there's a drop off after Thorpe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say Thorpe, Heaney, and then probably Ortiz. I like Ortiz.
The only one in the next 2 days who looks interesting to me is Andrew Heaney on Friday. Like, this is bad. This is bad.
Come on. Thorpe against the Mariners.
I would stream you against the Mariners right now. No J-Rod in that lineup. It's bad.
I mean, I guess that's the second best choice. I just don't trust Thorpe.
Yeah. All right. We are going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.